23-year-old Jayden Daniels will turn 24 just before Christmas. Game number 3 for him. He comes into this contest, Danny. I love that answer. I played my first game.
Yep.
Nervous about that, I'm sure. Then I played my first home game, first opportunity to play in front of the home crowd. Now it's my first Monday night game. There's always going to be firsts for him. You just got to try to – it's like a Hoosier scene, man. Try to tell yourself it's the same game.
Yeah, it's a 10-foot rim, 94-foot court, the whole deal.
Tonight, there's going to be a few more eyeballs watching him, which has normally meant big things in his career. So I'm going to give you his lines in his first 2 games, and I want to try to predict what we think he's going to do tonight. In week 1 at Tampa, the big story was how much he ran. You'll remember 16 attempts, like he was a featured tailback, 88 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. He fumbled 3 times in that game. He threw 17 of 24 through the air, 71%, 184 yards. Week 2 against the Giants, toned down the rushing a little bit, 10 carries, 44 yards. They kept him in check. He was 23 of 29 passing. They opened things up big time in the second half. Really, the second half, I thought he was pretty dynamic throwing the football. 226 yards. He does not have a touchdown on the season. Hopefully that changes tonight. He does not have an interception. Ideally, that doesn't change tonight. So let's go category by category here. What are you thinking for rushing attempts for Jayden Daniels?
I think 10 rushing attempts is the kind of the sweet spot, the kind of that magic number. I think that's a handful of scrambles. I think a handful of designed. Hopefully they get rid of some of those power middle type runs for him. I'd like those for now ripped right out of the playbook, but you maybe got to do it to keep somebody honest. But I think right around that 9 or 10 rushing total, I think is the right amount.
I'm going to take the over tonight. Sometimes that can be based on a perceived like pass rush matchup I don't like. I honestly just think it's a let's show the country who I am kind of vibe. Let's take off and go. Let's make some plays. I'm going to say he runs the ball 13 times tonight. I think we split the difference between the first 2 games. How many rushing yards for Jayden Daniels this evening?
36. I think it's going to be
so 10 for 36 is a quiet night.
I think it's going to be mission critical for Cincinnati. I think they're not dumb. I think they're going to say, you are not going to beat us that way. We're going to challenge you, whether it's a spy, whether it's coverages, where they're not going to have many man looks, where guys have their heads turned. I think people are going to stay disciplined, stay in rush lanes, do what the Rams a few years ago did to Kyler Murray, which is you stay in the pocket and you beat us from there.
I think it's a 100 rushing yard night for Jayden Daniels.
That would be way different than what I'm saying.
I am going to say 101 rushing yards on 13 attempts. I think he mixes in like a 37-yard run or a 39-yard run or something like that, some kind of big play. Again, the only script for me to Washington staying in the game is him playing some Foo Fighters, There Goes My Hero music.
Great reference.
And just starting to sprint all over the yard. And I kind of envision him doing that as the game goes on. So I will say, we saw him go for 88. 3 fewer carries, maybe 12 to 15 more yards, a little more efficiency, because I think he will have the longest yard run of his season. His long so far has been 17. I think he surpasses that tonight. How about on the passing front? Does he throw his first touchdown tonight?
Yes. Yes, he does. I think it's a check down where the running back makes a play, or maybe it's a little swing pass, but it's Eckler, Robinson, something like that out there in the flat.
I think he has 1 touchdown tonight rushing and 1 passing. I'll say he hits Zach Ertz in the middle of the field for a 9-yard touchdown. Comes free, back of the end zone, makes a leaping catch, gets his feet in. Jayden Daniels has his first passing touchdown in the league. So I'm going 1 touchdown. I will say he also gets intercepted for the first time.
I think so too.
And I think he has his first interception tonight. How about you?
I do too. I am with that. Because again, the way I see I'm thinking of game script, right? That's how I'm sort of leading these predictions and thoughts. Is Cincinnati's going to say, you are throwing the football. This is what's going to happen. Good, bad, and different. That's how we're going to deal with it. I think they've got some playmakers on the back end that will take it away, whether it's an errant pass, whether it's one of these receivers isn't open, he tries to shoehorn it in there, whether it's something tipped. I do think a pick comes today, which is normal, but I do think it finally happens.
You think they're good enough stopping the run to have a bunch of success against Washington doing that? Because I do think that's what they'd like to do. And if you look at it so far this season, they've been pretty good in that area. They're number 6 against the run. But the Chiefs got what they wanted to with Pacheco, then he got hurt. Week before that, they did a really good job on the Patriots, and that was a similar plan. Like, it's not going to be the run. Jacoby Brissett's going to have to make some plays. And they shut the Patriots offense down. The big difference to me is Brissett actually, if you look at that game, scrambled around a lot.
Yep.
Like, there was a lot of room for him to run, and that's part of why I like the Jayden Daniels lines and hammering some overs on his yardage props, which we'll get into when we do the FanDuel over and unders a little later in the show. But for the record, they are 18th against the run per play. They're 6th overall defensively. They're 4th against the pass. So the Bengals have actually done a much better job against the pass, where they're top 7 interception rate, than they've been against the run. I think they know they need to stop the run. I just think that's easier said than done when you got to go 11-on-11, account for Daniels, and Kingsbury's getting matchup problems with numbers based on how he aligns things, how he keeps the defense on the field and spreads you out and then brings you back in with like extra tight ends. I kind of think Washington's going to be able to run the ball.
So if they do, it's going to go a lot different than I think, right? I mean, to me, this is one of those. Cincinnati's defense is good enough to take something away. I think there's 3 tiers of defense. One, great defense that you can barely move the ball against. There aren't many of those left. 2, good enough above a threshold where we could take something away and force you into a certain kind of style. If you've got answers on both ends, then we're screwed. Then there's that terrible defense, and we know something about that here in Washington. But I think Cincinnati can come up with a game plan enough, and they've got enough horses to be able to go, we can play slightly differently, knowing we're so good on the back end. We'll take you away. We'll deal with it if you have to drop back and throw the ball. They are going to sell out, I think, which they haven't done to this point this year. I would have done it against New England week 1, by the way, but who knows how real or fraudulent that result was. But I think you could say we're going to make it so that you have to pass on 2nd and 3rd down. That is our plan. And if you'd like to run it on those downs, you're going to run into a brick wall. We're going to stack boxes. We're going to be a pain in the butt to take away the thing that we know you like doing and are comfortable doing. If you could do something that you're uncomfortable doing and haven't proved you've done to this point, we'll tip our cap at the end of this one.
All right, so then let's do this. You're saying run gets stopped, they dare you to throw it. He was 17 of 24 against the Bucks. He was 23 of 29 against the Giants. You kind of see the formula. They want to keep him under 30 passes. You're now playing a really good opponent. You're a heavy underdog. You might be trailing by a bunch. You might have to throw it a lot. Does he throw it over 30 times for the first time?
I don't think so. I don't think we quite get there. There's going to be a lot of square peg, round hole. I see it like a 17 for 28 kind of game for about 155. Missed opportunities maybe here and there, but I don't see the downfield passing game
So
materializing.
155, yet. By the way, would be his lowest passing total of the season.
Yes.
And you also have them losing. We haven't given your full prediction, but I can just tell from this script you're writing, you've got them losing sizably, I would say. So what's interesting to me about that, from a game script standpoint, if you're down by a lot, I would think his numbers would be higher just because he's throwing in garbage time. You still don't even see the garbage time production.
Yeah, the garbage time against Tampa, I think, was just that. And, you count it. Obviously, it's on your stat sheet. But...
So you think this looks more like that? Because, to be clear, the first week, their passing offense was horrific.
For 3 quarters.
And Daniels throwing the football, I don't mean to say, like, mechanically was bad. I'm not talking about, like, a miss of Terry McLaurin, but just generally,
there was nothing to their pass offense. That's okay to say.
He didn't even really try to throw the football. He just dropped back and ran it. You think it'll look more like that than week 2 in the second half where they actually did find something?
Yeah, because I think that's a Giants boost. I don't think that's coming this week. So to me, we're going to try to open it up a little bit because we feel like we've built something, and Cincinnati's going to feast a little bit more. That's where I see the turnovers. That's where I see some pressure. That's where I see some confusion and, more incompletions because he's thrown for, 70 some odd percentage completion percentage. That's not sustainable. When you actually have some more high risk passing, which I think Cincinnati is going to try to force you to do. There are going to be misses. There are going to be tip passes. There's going to be members of the secondary driving on balls and the like. You're not just going to roll through at 75% for the entire season. I think this is one of those nights where it dips a little bit.
So I'm going to say he's 20 for 30 for 210 yards. And I think that a good majority of the production, like against the Giants, will come later in the game probably. But I think it is the most passing attempts because I also think they're going to be chasing the game a little bit. And I think he's going to have to, it's a lot of Austin Eckler. Like, to me, over in receiving yards for Austin Eckler, probably a good bit of Brian Robinson out of the backfield as well. But I like him to end up throwing enough in the second half that the numbers end up being pretty respectable in that 20 for 30 range for about 210 yards. But it sounds like neither of us are that different on Jayden Daniels other than I'm expecting a much bigger night running the football, it sounds like, than you are.
Yeah, I just don't see the success. I think that big week, I think it's going to be more like Tampa when it comes to running the ball. Remember, Robinson was 12 for 40. We weren't singing anybody's praises then.
Right. I don't think he's going to run it that great. I'm just saying I think Daniels – now, they will play him differently than they played Brissett. I guess it's possible they just thought Brissett would be a cinder block-footed pocket quarterback. But when you watch that game, and maybe I'm just thinking too much about that, but I went back this week and watched that first game, Jacoby Brissett would pull the ball down, and there would be a lot of space.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're playing the same things, then maybe you don't play as much, say, man against a guy like Jayden Daniels. You're going to play more zone or something because you don't want to turn and burn with your back to him. But against the Patriots, they really clearly didn't care that much about that, and they gave a lot of space that could be exploited.
Yeah, I would say maybe there's a bit too much weight on a week one result that was stunning and shocking and weird. But yeah, I understand the point there. I mean, I look at it this way. If I'm a smart coach and I'm looking at Washington, what's going to kill me? It's all things running the football. That's what I'm concerned with stopping 1, 2, and 3. That includes Jayden Daniels. That includes Brian Robinson. And when Eckler's in the game, it includes him. So I'm going to sell out to stop that. If they beat me with a group of receivers that I think is among the worst in the league, if they beat me with a tight end that is a catch and fall guy at this point in Zach Ertz, if they're able to get the football down the field by dropping back in the pocket and picking me apart, I'll adjust accordingly, I suppose, but I'm not confident in that. I don't think so. The same way, if I'm going into week one, Jacoby Brissett running around like he's, early 2000s Michael Vick isn't on my bingo card. It happened, and they got beat doing that, but it wasn't like they gave up 1 million points. I don't know. I just maybe I give enough credit here to Cincinnati going, we've got the access to the same game field everyone else does. It's pretty clear what their strength is, talking about Washington's. Let's make that hard for them, whereas the Giants didn't have that card in the bag.
Sure, they just have to be able to execute their plan.
Which is hard to do.
And they've given up the 29th most yards per game in the NFL. It's only been 2 games, but about 160 rushing yards per game at this point for the Bengals. I'll tell you who I think is going to wreck the game ultimately is Trey Hendrickson, who is just Ryan Kerrigan reincarnate.
Yep.
I don't know if anybody's noticed this. He wears 91. He is a big, strong defensive end.
You could come on, say the other thing.
He looks like Ryan Kerrigan a little bit.
In kind of like what way do you mean?
Like his hair. They both flex after. Okay, he's white.
Yeah,
is that what you want me to say?
He's a white.
Yes,
it's okay.
But
it's okay to say he's a white.
Looks like
no. Their games
similar.
are similar. This is not a speed rusher.
I think he has a high motor.
Yes,
he's sneaky athletic.
Oh, now you're doing bits.
Okay.
Which, by the way, are good bits. I'm tipping the cap to you, but he is sneaky athletic.
Trey Hendrickson.
He's a hustle player.
He just constantly.
He's a gym rat. We say that.
I'm sure.
No, I mean, listen, but it's the same kind of rush, right? It's not like Kerrigan was never going to be the speed rush champion, right? He's not doing that knee bend, get around the curve type deal. And Hendrickson's got sort of the same proclivities.